Welcome back to the First Team. I'm Joe DeLeone, and with me is my co-host, NFL Draft Analyst for A to Z Sports, Ryan Roberts. Today, we're doing another summer scouting episode, talking cornerbacks for the 2025 NFL Draft. Ryan, the very simple way of putting this year's defensive back class in general, the corner class is extremely deep. You were just saying, I jokingly said, let's talk about 30 different guys. We're obviously not going to do that. I didn't even watch nearly enough. You kind of came close. But there's a lot of different names, a lot of really good players. I have right now as we speak, I have 10 guys, 11 guys that have better than a top 100 grade or better. So very aggressive on this year's class.
I have 13 top 100 grades, and out of 23 kids that I have grades for, I have 19 that have a draftable grade. So this is a This is a class, man. It's Joe. Like we joked about it on our last show, but I truly felt like for like a 6-day span, I watched a corner that I wasn't overly familiar with going into the summer, and I came out with a top 100 grade, dude. Like it was a wild affair for like a week. It really is. So I think that there's going to be a couple groups that will deem stronger at the top ish. I mean, like there will be a conversation. But I have not come across a group yet that has the depth of what the corner class has for the 2025 NFL Draft. It's wildly deep this year.
I said this on the mock draft episode. It's almost comical how I was watching these guys, and like Mansour DeLeone was one who I watched, and I did my notes for him, and I had a really good grade for him. And then afterwards, I was kind of looking at my board, and I'd been deep enough in where I was thinking to myself, man, I can't have this many guys with this high of grades. I have to bump them down a little bit. So I overcorrected. And then when I texted you and I talked with you, you basically, without saying it, were like, you're way overcomplicating this. And I was like, okay. Yeah. You didn't know that you were telling me this, but you told me basically like, you need to fix your reasoning here. And I ended up going back and adjusting that one. But it is weird how many good players there are.
Sometimes when we look at holistically at a board, we talk ourselves out of certain things, right? Yeah. But in reality, you're probably just ahead of the curve a little bit. I mean, when we get down to it, I think that we're going to be talking about this corner class being, I want to say historically, because like I haven't been doing this for 30 years, right? But like in the last 10 years-ish, I mean, this is the deepest corner class that I can ever remember in the summer scouting portion of this evaluation process. So, yeah, man, just stay firm to what you believe, what your eyes tell you, and I think in the end, you're just going to be proven to be ahead of the curve on that type of familiarity. Because I mean, like I'll say this, Joe, like, and truthfully, right, is that this class is one where I don't know if it's like resolute from or just the. I don't know if this is the end of the COVID eligibility thing. So like we're getting this, some classes are abnormally large compared to one another. Like, I don't know if that's what's happening here, but it definitely feels like it at corner, man. Like this is one of those classes where I just kind of, you could have almost, and I actually think texted you about this and it was kind of a joke, but like not fully a joke. We could have broken this into outside corners and nickels in this class. Cause I think there's that many good nickels in this class too, dude. So we're talking about as deep a corner class as we have seen in a long time, or at least that I've seen in a long time.
All right. Well, I'll kick us off here with my 10 through 6 at number 10. I've got Quincy Riley from Louisville. Number 9, Mansour DeLeone from Virginia Tech. By the way, these are all very high grades. Quincy Riley had a 6.7, which equates to a mid-third. Denzel...
Is it DeLeone or is it Delaney? I've been calling him Mansour DeLeone. I guess I could be wrong about that.
I'm going to just guess DeLeone. I don't think he's Italian, so I'm just going to go with DeLeone. Denzel Burke is my number 8. Cobee Bryant is my number 7 from Kansas. And then number 6, I have Maxwell Hairston from Kentucky.
Okay. All right. So we've talked about him a little bit in the past on this show, so I don't want to rehash it too much. Obviously, you have a good grade on Denzel Burke, but there is something that is holding you back if you want to highlight that.
Well, and I said this during the mock draft. I just think he's really zone specific. I think he is far and away the best zone corner. I think he is going to be an unbelievable player, but I need to take him on day 2. I feel like I don't want to take a guy like this in the first round. I know that you're more willing to take that chance and overlook it a little bit, but the change of direction isn't as good as I would like it to be. Fantastic tackler, unbelievable acceleration that makes him able to close down on gaps. That change of direction was the only thing that I had a little bit pause on.
And then my other one was, because I had this guy at cornerback 12 with a late third round grade, so I was a fan of him, but he did not make my list, so you highlighting him a little bit would probably be a good thing. Quincy Riley from Louisville is fun, dude. Like, fun is the word that I hate to when talking about summer scouting, but like this kid is, I think we had official measurements on him. I think he's like 5'10" and some change, if I remember correctly.
He's a little compact. He's a little compact.
Yeah, so I'm going to get to the measurements as I continue talking, but he's one of those kids that small but feisty as heck, right? And like the short area stuff is really good as well. But we're talking about a kid, and I have his numbers right here. Yep, here it is. 5'10" and 6'8", so a hair under 5'11", only 187 pounds. But he's one of those kids that plays far above his zip code as a football player, man. He's a really feisty kid, and he's projected to run 4.4 flat or better. So like, this is a pretty explosive kid too.
I think he's either going to be a really good nickel corner or he's going to be a really good zone corner. I think he can do really well in either scheme. Love the aggressiveness with the ball in the air. That was the biggest thing. He's not going to have enough length to really be a true disruptor at the catch point, but wow, he was not afraid to be aggressive when the ball was in the air. Just quick trigger to go after it as soon as the ball was thrown. I thought he was strong, just strong enough to be there at that 10 spot.
Yeah, well, and that he was one of those guys that I think we were talking about this the other day when we were talking about like the nickel conversation. Like that's one guy that I would throw into the nickel day one, and I think he can be a starter in that nickel potentially. But to your point, if there's a team that's a zone heavy, like cover 2 oriented team, I think that Quincy Riley could do really well in a zone scheme. Number 10 for me. Okay. Number 10, Tacario Davis from Arizona at number 10. I guess that means that you're much higher on Tacario Davis. I guess that's what that means.
All right, go ahead, continue.
Number 10, Tacario Davis, cornerback from Arizona, all 6'3" plus of him. Jordan Hancock at number 9 for me from Ohio State, nickel corner. Mansour DeLeone or Delaney, number 8 for me on this list. Number 7, Maxwell Hairston from Kentucky. And number 6, Cobee Bryant, cornerback from Kansas.
Tacario Davis, why do you hate him so much?
I don't hate him at all, Joe. I think that he has really good change of direction for a bigger corner. I think he's a little bit high cut, though, and he's a little bit lean. So I worry a little bit, despite him being taller, to match physicality consistently, specifically at the line of scrimmage. And I think he's got okay build-up speed as far as like long speed, but like I do think there's some guys that are going to be able to uncover vertically on him a little bit. So I don't know if I would call him scheme specific, because I do think that he has enough change of direction to be able to play in some off man and do that type of stuff as well. But I am a little bit worried about him if he is mano-a-mano in an island, the ability to give up an occasional big play. That does worry me slightly with Tacario.
I'll wait to give my thoughts on him. We both were big fans of Kobe Bryant, who he retweeted me, which I don't really know what he meant by when he quote tweeted me. What did he say? I shared his clip
He's just saying like his talk's going to or his film's going to show soon or something.
I know. Just I thought it was a little like, oh, okay, thanks, Kobe. Where is it? Let me see if I can find it really quickly. I tweeted Kansas DB Kobe Bryant is crazy sticky in coverage. Took him 10 minutes to find the tweet, and he said, "No need for talk. We come in 100 talk soon." Okay. Thanks, Kobe. You're a great football player, though. He's one of these guys that just like on a dude's hip every second of every single rep. And you put me onto him. I think that he is not covered enough by others in the national landscape, just from the college football world, draft world, whatever it might be. He's a shutdown guy, like a complete shutdown guy that will ride you in your back pocket until the end of the play.
He reminds me a lot of Devin Witherspoon. And again, I'm not saying that he's going to be a top 10 pick like Devin Witherspoon, but there's a lot of parallels to him as far as playing bigger than his listed size. Because he is 6 foot flat, so he's not a short guy. Like his size and length is going to be fine for NFL standards. It's going to be good for NFL standards. But he's a little light, right? Like you see his frame, and you would assume that he would just not lack physicality, but that is not him. And the great thing about him, Joe, and I think you highlighted, is that like he has all the requisite skills. Change direction's good. I think long speed is solid to good. Like he has every physical profile that you want as far as like athletically from those thresholds. But the thing I love about him and what separates him, and I'm going to talk about him when I talk about another corner in my top 5 specifically, he has this demeanor like he thinks it's disrespectful that you're trying to make a catch on him. And I like you.
That is great.
You could throw him over to USC. You could throw him up to Ohio State. You could put him at University of Florida. Like you could throw him in any defensive backfield or any place in the country, and that demeanor will translate anywhere because he is corners need that, dude. I mean, that's one thing that I loved about J.C. Horn coming out of South Carolina was he was so confident, right? And he talked his talk, but then he walked it afterwards, right? And that's what I love about Kobe Bryant. That demeanor that plays on the NFL level. You need that little bit of over aggressive chip on your shoulder. Like you need to talk it, and he does. And I really respect it a lot as a player.
Yeah, that's summed up in his quote tweet of me. The one thing to get back to his coverage, the first clip that I shared, he literally ran the route for the receiver. Like that doesn't happen a ton on film at the Division I level in the Big 12. He couldn't have ran the route more for that receiver than he did. It was pretty funny to watch. Just so freaking fun to watch the coverage. All right, I'm going to start us off here with my number 5. My number 5 was Tacario Davis from Arizona. You mentioned he is ridiculously tall, ridiculously long. I thought, as you mentioned, a little bit high-legged, some wasted steps in his open up process when he's trying to transition
like vertically, right? Like because I thought the change of direction back to our line of scrimmage was pretty good, but it was like opening up and running, if that makes sense. Yeah,
I'm really betting on the upside here because, as I said in the mock draft episode, go tune into that if you missed it. I think if Tariq Woolen can have as early of an impact as he can, I thought that there's parallels to their profiles and the way that they move, the way that they're built, but I'm far more optimistic of Davis's ceiling because I think he's a better athlete just with his hips. I think that he is a lot more fluid in opening up because that was the big issue with Tariq Woolen is that he was not an easy transitioner, but why he's so good in that Seahawks scheme is that he is so fast upfield. And I think that while he's not going to be 4.29, he is fast enough at that length with his hips to be able to very easily transition. But the biggest thing is, I mean, you can't find that length. You just can't. He is very disruptive at the catch point, and he is going to be able to make plays on the ball that other guys can't.
Well, it's funny you say that you just can't find that length. I mean, literally, Arizona had a kid on the other side of the field that was probably longer.
I know.
Which is hilarious for the Prysock kid.
Prysock is an interesting kid. He's like watching a baby deer figure out how to run because he's – God, that kid could be really freaking good in a couple of years, but he is a couple of steps behind.
Agreed. Number 5 for me, kid that I know you're going to love, Joe. So let's start the conversation. Siobhan Revell, cornerback from ECU, listed at 6'3". Don't have a verified on him, but I would say he's probably 6'2", 6'2.5", somewhere in that ballpark. Mm-hmm. Only listed at 185 pounds, but like I don't really care because there's no lack of physicality on film that I. He also looks big, far.
Like he looks well put together.
Yeah, which is kind of weird. So maybe that's just a bad listing on the site. I honestly don't know. We don't have a verified height and weight on him right now from NFS or Blesto, so you can just go off the unverified information right now. Mm-hmm. But this kid, Joe, great backstory. He went to Lewisburg College, which is a junior college in the state of North Carolina. He was a North Carolina kid, went there first, did not have any offers, starts camping at random campuses. He showed up to East Carolina, and the story I read was East Carolina coaching staff didn't even really know who he was. Didn't know. But then, Joe, at that size, he runs 4.4 flat in the 40-yard dash and has an 11-foot broad jump. And they're like, oh, okay, here's a scholarship offer for you, right? So first year, 2022, didn't play a ton. I think he had like 8 total tackles, no interceptions, no pass breakups. Like didn't play a lot this past year. Double-digit tackles, double-digit pass breakups, this past year. This kid is a height, weight, speed freak, but the thing that I love about him most, and I compare him to Antonio Cromartie in a recent article, and I think I mentioned it briefly on this show, is that for a guy that is 6'2" and leggy, you would not expect him to be able to open up and run and change direction the way he can. This kid is a special, rare athlete at that height. I wanted to be a little bit more consistent with technique and find the football in the air a little bit more often. But man, if he can fix those couple teachables, then I think that we're talking about a bona fide first-round pick, no doubt about it. He has that upside to him. Early, very early, 7.8 on my grading scale, very early second-round pick that I believe will be a first-rounder when April comes.
He's my number 4 guy that I had on my list. You mentioned the length. He's almost like what I just talked about there with Takario Davis, except for he's much more fluid. He feels a lot more natural. To have a guy that...
Yeah.
What? Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, can I phrase it like this and see if you agree with this or not?
Mm-hmm.
There's one football player on here that you could say is the more talented football player, quote unquote. But is there if everyone hits their ceiling and becomes the best version of themselves at some point in their career, is there a more rare athlete in this group than Siobhan Revell? That would be my question. I don't know if there's anybody that I would say is more physically gifted from him from a height, weight, speed, change of direction perspective.
Yeah, that's the best way to put it, is that he's certainly a projection, but I mean, I thought that he was pretty clean for essentially how raw we're depicting him to be for playing the position. Dude moves at an unreal level. He deserves to be at that number 4 spot where I have him. Who do you have at number 4?
Number 4 for me is Benjamin Morrison from Notre Dame. Okay. Joe, 7.9 on the scale, about as high as a second round grade as you possibly can. I think he's a late first, early second round player in a vacuum. That will probably go higher. I'd be willing to bet today that Benjamin Morrison probably goes in the top 20 picks. I think that projection is going to be out there. Here's the things about Benjamin, okay? Positives and negatives. Positives, 6 foot, 186 pounds, solid length, size thresholds is going to be good. It's going to be NFL standard. I think he changes direction really well. And I think that he is incredibly instinctive and he sees the game very quickly, man. Like he kind of sees routes develop in front of him. He's competitive. He will fight through contact. There's no doubt about it. Here is my biggest hang up with Benjamin Morrison. And I'm just slightly lower than some on him, but still like him a lot. Is that I just think the play strength needs to take a step forward, man. Like he's competitive at the catch point, but if you watch the game against like Marvin Harrison, for instance, and I know this is no knock because Marvin Harrison was a great player, right? But there were a couple plays where you just got boxed out, man, and you weren't able to fight that power and fight that pressure for a guy that was 6'2.5", 6'3", and 200 plus pounds. Like you just need a little bit more physicality at the catch point. And he's a bad tackler right now. Like he's just a below average player in the run game. And the reason that I'm worried about that, because you can always improve form and consistency in the run game and angles of pursuit. You can improve those things. But the thing that gives me pause is he's participating in fall camp, which is great to see because it was originally thought that he might not be available for fall camp. But it makes me worried about a guy that I struggle with physicality and tackling, that he's coming off of a shoulder injury. That's one thing that just kind of gives me slight pause for a second. Still think he's going to be a first round pick. Still think he's probably going to be a top 20 overall player when all is said and done. But I just do have one little, like, it's holding me back a little bit from buying fully into Benjamin Morrison. Like him a lot. There is some physical development that I do want to see happen in 2024.
I had him at number 3, and it was I'm really high on him because of the way that he shines in coverage. And it all just comes down to, I don't think that there is a more naturally fluid coverage player in this class at all. Like he is not as big as some of these other guys that we're talking about. Their instincts of some of these other players is probably just a little bit better, but he is able to follow guys step for step. We talked about with Kobe Bryant, stay in that back pocket, mirror guys, keep up with them, not allow any separation because his hips are super easy, really good athlete, really good change of direction. He checks every single box. But then the thing that you brought up, poor tackler, poor play strength. When we did our scouting report episode on him, that was the biggest thing that we brought up of a concern. Can he be more physical? Can he add a little bit more weight, a little bit more power so that in those contested spots against a Marvin Harrison Jr., who's an unreal player, but you're going to have to go up against more physical players. What are you going to do when you have to cover DK Metcalf? Are you going to be able to at least make a play on the ball? And you need to be a much better tackler. So, those things all come into play for him. He's probably still going to be a first rounder. I don't see a way that he he ends up sliding, assuming maybe there is a serious injury that he suffers with the shoulder if it ends up nagging him, but obviously not hoping for that. Is your number 3 Denzel Burke?
Number 3 is Denzel Burke. Yep. I have a late first-round grade, 8.0 on the scale for Denzel Burke out of 9. Joe, I understand the change of direction is not near elites. Like, I understand it. But I am okay with the change of direction because I think that he overcompensates in a couple different areas. One, I think straight line speed is good. I've seen guys try to uncover on him a ton, and I haven't seen anybody uncover deep so far in the film that I've evaluated from 2023. He's so physical, dude. Like, physical at the line of scrimmage, physical through the stem, competitive at the catch points. And he is just some of the plays that he makes in zone where he's able to play a little bit of a cover 2 shell and be able to pass off deeper routes and come back towards the line of scrimmage and dislodge ball carriers and dislodge of intended receivers. Man, it's hard not to fall in love with this guy a little bit, right? So I'm buying in to the CB1 demeanor that he brings to the table. I don't think that he believes that there's anybody across him that's better than him. He carries himself that way, and a lot of the times he is absolutely correct based upon the 2023 film. Did not like 2022 at all. Remember watching him last summer, and I was just like, I don't see it with this guy right now. 2023 was a completely different animal. So yes, might not be the greatest change of direction player. He's not the greatest change of direction player in general, and especially on this list. But speed, physicality, length, technique, I think everything else is there for him to be a very good corner on the NFL level.
You don't disagree that he's not phenomenal to watch. He's just, I don't know, man. I can't get past the change of direction. A guy who doesn't have issues with change of direction, though, is my number 2, which is Will Johnson. Will Johnson, he's right up there with Travis Hunter, who we're going to get to in a second. I have very, very close grades between the two of them.
Okay.
6'2", 200, like really built up frame. He almost looks like a safety the way that he plays. Do you have a different listed weight than him?
No, we don't have a verified on him, so it's just the 6'2", 204 that he's said or whatever it is.
He, at that size, not only brings the physicality, but he has the athletic fluidity to track guys like he was the same size as Benjamin Morrison. But the biggest thing that places him into this rare category where you can define a player as future all-pro is the instincts. There are just so many times on film before the ball even comes out of a quarterback's hand or before a route is completed by a receiver, he's able to see what's happening in front of him before it happens. This is one of the smartest defensive backs that I've watched. It's close to Malachi Starks, who we're going to talk about when we get to safeties. But I was just in awe. Jaw on the floor with the decision-making and everything that he brings to the table.
So this is my thing with Will, okay? And Will Johnson is number 1 on my list, okay? So just to get that out of the way. Joe, I don't really see a hole in his game, man. No. Like, I'm struggling with this one, right? Because I was talking with James Foster that I do the A to Z Film Room show with, and he was talking to me about, like, I don't know if his long speed is great. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. It's not great, but, like, it's good still, right? Like, it's a good NFL standard long speed. But we're talking about a kid that is 6'2", 204 pounds, plays with great technique, has great vision, really disciplined football player in zone and man. And his change of direction for a guy his size is bonkers, dude. Like, some of the movement skills that he has out of his pedal, turning and run, unhinging, oily hips, like it's kind of wild to watch, man. It really is. So Dad played at Michigan. He was always going to play at Michigan. He has been stellar his first 2 years. Freshman All-American in 2022, All-American in 2023. This kid's an easy eval guy, in my opinion. Like, again, Siobhan Revelle, even Travis Hunter, like, there's a couple of kids that you could argue have higher upside than him, but, like, I know Will Johnson's going to be a good player in the NFL. Like, I had no doubt in my mind that he's going to be a good football player. He reminds me a lot, and I made this comp before, and I just keep phrasing it this way because there's two versions of this guy that people will come to people's mind. Tremaine Johnson, when he was with the LA Rams, or it was the St. Louis Rams at that time, before he went over to the Jets on a big deal. Dude was so good, man. Like 6'2", he Montana guy too, Joe. I don't know if you remember Tremaine Johnson, but he went to Montana.
Was he really?
Yeah, man. He was a Montana guy. He was like a 3rd-round pick out of Montana, 4th-round pick, something like that. But yeah, he was a Montana kid, All-American FCS player, and he ended up being a phenomenal player for the Rams. Then he went to the Jets, and he wasn't very good anymore. But think St. Louis Rams version Trumaine Johnson when you think about Will Johnson. Height, physicality, and really good change of direction and a knack for the football. I really am still high.
Here's the one difference though. Johnson ran a 4.61. Trumaine Johnson ran a 4.61. I think Will Johnson's going to run a lot faster than that.
Oh yeah, I would say Will Johnson 4.5 flat, right? Like 4.48, 4.52, like somewhere in that ballpark. Like it's going to be good for his size though, right? Trumaine, there's a reason that Trumaine Johnson played FCS football, right, Joe? I mean, there had to be some knock on him.
Goddamn mouth. Number one for me is a former FCS football player at Jackson State, now at Colorado. Travis Hunter is one of the few times I've watched a player and I verbally said out loud, "Holy shit!" And I'm referring to not only the play where he picked off, I think it was Dante Moore against UCLA, the third play. I remember
the UCLA game was wild. It was insane.
But then it was a little later on in the game. He had another interception. The first one he had was pretty wild because the quick decision making was so random that he was able to just decide, I'm going to launch myself in this direction before the ball even came out, and he picked it off. The second interception he has in this game, he has opened up already. He's already against the sideline. And he is able to retrace his steps almost, burst up to where the ball is. He's got like 5 or so yards to travel, and he plucks the ball out of the air, and then I think he ran with it a little bit after that.
Right.
I understand that he is not as refined as Will Johnson, probably not as refined as Benjamin Morrison or Denzel Burke. He is playing and doing too much at Colorado right now. I think in the NFL he could maybe contribute on offense, an occasional series, maybe like 2 series a game. You just put him out there just to cause some confusion, get him the football, keep him happy because he clearly likes to do both. But for how accomplished he is and how freakish of an athlete he is and how natural, like we just talked about with Will Johnson, how naturally he can just make a play on the football and know where everything is going.
Right.
I think that you give him some more time, and this is a future All-Pro, just like Will Johnson is.
He very well could be, Joe. I gave him an early first-round grade as well. I had an 8.4 on Travis Hunter, who comes in at number 2 for me. I had an 8.7 on Will Johnson. So slight separation, not crazy separation.
We had the same exact grade on Will Johnson. I had an 8.7.
Oh, wait, what did you have on Travis Hunter?
8.8, baby.
Yeesh, dude. Wow.
Dude, okay, this fits an elite player. I said this to you. What's the comp? Yeah. What is the comp for him? There is no comp for Travis Hunter.
He's like Shohei Ohtani playing football,
That's
right?
The lazy
just
comp.
Like he's I mean it's stupid, right? Because he's a two-way star and he does everything type of thing. But I mean honestly, your question is very fair because I don't have a good comp right now. Like I would have to think deep about this one and do some body composition things. Because you know what's so rare about him, Joe, is that I think straight line speed is good. Like I don't think it's his best trait though, but like I think straight line speed is good.
I think he can run high 4.4s.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, like 4.47, 4.48. Like it's good, right? Not a negative at all. But the things that are special about him is the change of direction is kind of ridiculous, dude. Like it really
the
is.
Jumps. He might break a record in one of the jumps. I could totally see that.
He's super springy. Change of direction is great. He has really good feel for zone too, man. Like he sees very quickly and sorts through traffic and drops out the high low that you're talking about against UCLA, where he's eyeing the underneath route. I think it was just like a flat route, and he comes back on the corner and intercepts the ball. Where you're just like, bro, like people don't do that type of stuff. Like it doesn't make any damn sense, right? So that stuff is very rare. But the thing that makes him unique, because there's other corners that do that type of stuff pretty well, the change of direction and the springiness for a guy that has here's one. He's listed at what, like 6 foot? Actually, I think we have it verified.
He was like 6'1", 195.
He is, so he's verified like 6 foot and 1/8 and like 184 or something like that, right? So like, but so for that body type, you would think that he would have adequate length. Dude, his arms are long, dude. Like he's super long. Like he's got a reach.
Do we have an arm measurement on him?
I don't know. I can find one though, but his arms have to be 32 high, 33 inches. Like they have to be.
32 might be. I mean, he's got to be 33. He feels like a 33. Kid.
He might be 33 plus. Yeah. No, I could definitely see 33 plus. So that's what makes this rare, is that he has the ability to play outside of his frame, because not only is he springy, but he's super long as well, and he's got really good change of direction. So he's going to be a pass breakup, interception merchant on the next level. He's going to make a lot of plays on the football. I am very curious to see, one, does he play a little less receiver this year? Not a ton less, but like a little less, maybe like 10 less snaps a game or something like that, you know? Like,
it's probably not going to happen.
It's probably not, but like someone could hope, because I think that he could be a very good second. He could probably even be a number one receiver in certain situations on the NFL level, but I think he could be an all-pro corner, right? Like, could he be Calvin Ridley as a receiver? It's possible. Like, maybe he could be, but he could also be one of the best corners in the NFL. So I'm very interested to see if they take a little bit off his plate as far as on the offensive side of the football, let him play corner a lot more, because he is kind of just working off of being really smart and really athletic right now. But I think there is a step that he could take technically. Like, he can make things easier for himself, man. It does not have to be always hard. This kid has special upside. There's no doubt. I would draft him in the top 10, and I wouldn't think twice about him. Literally just gave him top 10 in the mock draft. So, yes, Travis Hunter is a special athlete and potentially a very, very special football player.
Final thought on him, and you've, I think, summed up perfectly why I have him as my top prospect. I gave him the blue chip grade. He can cover more ground than I think a vast majority of NFL corners can. Like, there's just, for the jumps that he can make, the arm length that he has, the change of direction that he has, despite not being as tall as Tacardio Davis or Siobhan Revell, he can cover a ridiculous amount of ground. And that's what's going to make him an elite corner in the NFL. And that's what's already made him an elite corner, despite him not doing it full time. That's going to be it for the show. We got, you're on vacation. You're at a wedding or something.
Scotland, baby.
Scotland.
Yeah, man.
Overrated. Just kidding.
Never been there, so I have no concept of that.
I've never been either. I'm just being a dickhead. All right, we're gonna do safeties. No, receivers next. So when we get back, we're gonna be talking receivers. At Joe DeLeone at Rise and Draft. Hit the subscribe button, and we will talk to you folks later.